Hello, friends. I'm no therapist, but I'm your host, Stephanie Goodman. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman of faith. Often friends ask me how I have a successful marriage while blending families and staying optimistic in life. This podcast features people with real life stories about success in relationships and triumph over trial. Have you ever heard the saying, learn from the past, but don't make a home there? My awesome friend and guest Nathan Osmond shares with us how our past is to be learned from and not lived in. Today we'll talk about some of the lessons learned from his experiences as a country music artist, life coach, actor, and host of the podcast Achieving Awesomeness Now. I'm excited to introduce to you my dear friend, Nate Osmond.
Well, hello there. How are you? It's good to be here, Steph. Come on. Look at that. Canned applause. It's good to be here. What a setup you guys have here on your podcast.
That's right.
Are you sure you're not a therapist?
Right. No. But I do have real life experiences.
That's right. See? And that's the key. And are we learning from our real life experiences?
That is the huge question.
Yeah.
Is are we learning from
What
those
are we taking away from each
experiences?
day?
And I love that you went to experiences and not mistakes, right?
Well, we all make those too, right? But is it truly a mistake? A mistake shouldn't be permanent, right? We can learn from the mistake, and as long as we improve upon that mistake and don't make it again, and again, and sometimes that happens.
Right.
Have we truly learned from the mistake? Or are we just repeating? Are we going through the motions?
Right.
You know? And when you just go through the motions, you lack the emotion.
Ooh, can you tell this is going to be so yummy?
Well, this is going to be fun. I am excited to be here, and thank you for the invitation. It's been a good, couple years, a lot of changes in my life. Life is full of twists and turns, and one thing you can always plan on in life is change. And, I was out on the road speaking and representing lots of big people like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank and Dean Graciosi and all these HGTV people as their guy, as their real estate guy. And it was a lot of fun. I was on the road. I did 277 live events in 201 cities just in 2019. In fact, on November 5th, get this, I'm sitting on a plane in Salt Lake City Airport, first class, talking to the guy next to me about all the places I'm going to go and see and places I'm going to eat at in San Diego. I'm telling them all the stuff. And I get interrupted by my sales team who's sitting around me. And they said, Osmond, read your text message right now.
Oh.
And it said, effective immediately, we're closing our doors. And I called my guys at the office and I said, hey, I'm still on the plane here, haven't taken off yet. Would you advise that I get off this airplane right now? Yes, if you can still get off, get off. So I jump off, lost my neck pillow in the process.
Oh,
I was
no,
upset.
that's valuable.
Got my bag off of this plane, and then life was starting over for me. It was so out of the blue. The company had gotten sued that day. Nothing that had anything to do with what I had been doing. But the thing is it affected over 500 people in their jobs. Like that, overnight, broadsided.
Instantaneously.
The crazy thing is, though, is that the week before, my wife said she wanted me to quit my job. And this was a good job, and I loved it, and I was having fun. It took me all over the world. It was a good job for a single guy, but I got 4 kids at home.
Yeah.
And it was affecting our relationship. And so she said, I want you to quit your job. Finally, right before I get on that plane, says, you can keep your job. She was kind of going through a funk. Mm-hmm. But I had said to Heavenly Father, if this is what you really want me to do, make it known unto me, clear as day, black and white, and now I'm neck pillow-less, because I left it on the plane, and I'm jobless.
Oh,
I'm having to start all over. There's right? My clear as day. Oh. And I went through some dark times, and this is November of 2019. What happened the next year?
Oh, we know.
COVID, right?
That's exactly
It would have shut
right.
down anyways. But the thing is that I had 2 months worth ahead of schedule of everybody else to go try and find another job. So it was a blessing in disguise. But I went through some dark times during that time in my life because I felt picked on. I felt like, seriously, like my favorite job I ever had is now gone. My wife's like, cheer up, Charlie. It's like, let's go to the movies. So we went to the movies, and I'm still feeling sorry for myself walking out of that place. But you know how they have those big cardboard cutout movie poster things on display as you're walking through the movie theaters?
Yes.
I walked past this James Bond poster. You know what it said to me? No Time to Die.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, that's a little too on the nose, right? Because I was feeling really dark and down and depressed. And then I walked past another poster. You know what it says? Onward. And I thought, God is talking to me through movie posters. He knows what I need to hear. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You got 4 boys to feed and a wife. Get off your rear end and do something. Roll your sleeves up and go to work. Regardless of a pandemic coming up and all this stuff, I decided to just, and I obtained a job on New Year's Eve of that year, and it was a great part-time job, and it went, really well, and we've been able to skyrocket our YouTube views and everything else as the VP of marketing. I even became the mascot for this company.
Oh, my
And they still
word.
keep me on retainer to do videos for them. Isn't that cool? But the thing is since that day, I've had the opportunity to star in movies. I had the opportunity to, I got co-producer credits on a movie called Even in Dreams, where I played myself in the movie. I have a production company, and guess where we shot that movie? In my studios. Isn't that fun? I've been able to do new recordings. I've been able to speak on stage in front of thousands of people since that day. And on top of it, I went back to school, got my license, because one thing you need to learn to do in life is pivot. That's kind of a dance move, pivot.
Right, yeah, right.
You got to learn to adjust your weight and know that
Twist those hips.
whatever you got to do to keep moving, because
right.
life's going to move on you. If you don't move with it, you can get hurt. So I pivoted, went back to school, got my license. I've since opened OsmondHomeLoans.com, which is a part of the elite team at Security Home Mortgage. I got my mortgage company, and we've just hit the ground running. And so now I got a job that keeps me home, but it still gives me the flexibility. Heck, I'm going down to Florida this next week. I'm going to be on stage with the guy from Ferris Bueller, Ben Stein. Bueller, that guy.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to be on stage with him on Wednesday,
Oh.
Speaking to a big crowd and singing. It's going to be a lot of fun in Florida. And we're taking the family. We got a family vacation coming up. And it's interesting how life is really changed, like night and day difference, because I was out on the road, like I said, doing a lot of speaking, performing. I got 4 number 1 hits in country music, but now I've got something new, a new gig.
Yeah.
And you just got to learn to write chapters in your life, and that's what we're doing every day, is just writing a new chapter.
Exactly right. I love that you went to that space of writing new chapters, because we're definitely doing that every single day of our life. I'm actually working on a book, which is funny for me to say. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
A book, I'll get one read if it's audio.
Yeah.
So what am I doing writing a book?
Well.
But I want to share with you, one of my favorite sayings is, what a caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. And if you look at my life, I notice that there are many butterflies in my life. Many, many times that I'm in a cocoon and feeling like, what am I doing? My life's a mess, right? A butterfly comes out of an entirely different, transformed body. And we could go into the science of a caterpillar, but honestly, does a caterpillar have butterfly legs? Butterfly head? Butterfly wings?
It's a butterfly in embryo.
There's nothing in a caterpillar that says it's going to be a butterfly. But we have to trust in our maker when things are dark. And I love that you shared that story of being in a space where you felt like it was the end of the world. I too have a COVID story that changed my life.
Yeah.
i.e., we're on this podcast right now. I was a preschool aide.
Nice.
And I loved it. I was a kindergarten aide for 2 years, fell in love with it. This is what I thought my passion was. I could sing the songs with the kids and do the stories and rumble on the ground with them, everything that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then I was a preschool aide. That was unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And that took me into a new world because at least kindergartners know when you say, let's line up, they know what that means. Say that to a preschooler, they don't know what you're talking about. So we get to play choo-choo train.
Oh, yeah.
Start with the basics. But being in COVID, I thought I'd found my space. And when we got sent home and we were not able to interact with the children anymore, I lost a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
However, being sent home and opening up the doors of being online, doing Zooms, I suddenly started finding my voice.
Yeah.
And I've always been a story gatherer. Always.
Yeah.
I record everything. I take pictures. I take video. I've been the kind of person that goes and visits the grandmas and grandpas of the neighborhood because I want to hear their stories.
Oh, yeah.
Love that. So the opportunity for me to be in this space of gathering people's stories that hopefully in turn will uplift and encourage and empower others. This is my passion.
Nice.
So I want to go into a space of this is a new year.
Okay.
A new you in 2022, right?
Yeah. I like that. It is. I mean, we're starting off the year. I mean, we're not very far into it right now.
Right.
And a lot of us have set goals. A lot of us have set dreams and ambitions of what we will do this year, right? We're all pumped up.
That's right.
Ready to go.
It's going to be a new.
We went and bought that gym membership in January.
For sure. Yep.
January is the biggest month for gym memberships. You know what the biggest month for gym membership cancellations is? February. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that crazy? Like they get their buyer's remorse and like, well, I guess I've only went once maybe in January. Maybe I should have reallocated those funds somewhere else. And then we wonder why we're not hitting our goals.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing is I remember one time I was on the road. I was doing some seminars and this guy named Brian Tracy, he's created a lot of self-made millionaires. And I had written in my wallet what I will do this year. Went through all my goals. And we're in California, and I said, Brian, take a look at this. I whipped it out of my wallet because I was carrying it everywhere I went. So I could look at my goals every day and carry them with me and commit to them. Anyways, he got really excited about that. And he says, Nathan, that's wonderful. But can I teach you a little something about goal setting? And I said, Brian, you've made more self-made millionaires than anybody I know. I'm all ears.
No kidding.
So he said, I want you to take that list of yours in your wallet. I want you to rewrite those same goals. But I want you to write them as if you're already living them. And I call it goals in the present. So instead of I'm going to lose this many pounds, what's your ideal weight? What do you want to hit? And I said 200. And I want to have a 34 size waist. At the time, I was over 250 pounds.
Wow.
And my size waist was almost 40. And so, I was a bigger guy. And so I knew I needed to change. And so I said, I weigh 200 pounds and have a size 34 waist. I'm an avid reader. I read at least, 5 books a year or something like that, I said, right? I earned this. I feel this. I accomplish this. I travel, every year, and we have a great family vacation, and I just described my best life now as if I was already accomplishing all these things.
Was that uncomfortable for you to do?
A little bit, because you don't believe it at first.
Right.
And you laugh at yourself. These are called affirmations. My friend actually calls them afformations. Noah St. John, I've had him on my show. And basically he says, we got to ask ourselves the right questions. Like Andy Andrews, who's one of my mentors. He says, the quality of our answers is determined by the quality of our questions. So like Noah, he says, why am I so rich? Why do I weigh this much? It's the same concept, but it's like that question as you start to think about it. There was this great recording back in the day called the Strangest Secret.
Have
you heard that one?
That you brought that up.
But just like that recording, by Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, what does he say in it? You become what you think about most of the time.
Exactly.
Now, there's exceptions to that. I mean, otherwise, every young man would be a young woman by the age of 16, right? But in most cases, you become what you think about most of the time. And isn't that interesting to call it a secret? Because you got Og Mandino's The Greatest Secret in the World, right? You got Rhonda Byrne, The Secret.
Correct.
Right? But one of my favorite books says, as a man thinketh, so is he. I started looking at these goals and started to, especially the weight loss goal. It was a big one. It was, kind of daunting because at that time I had gone to the doctor and my cholesterol was way out of whack. I was probably about 27 years old. My triglycerides were incalculable. I was a ticking time bomb. And here I had like one little baby boy that was depending on me to stick around. So I knew I had to do something. And so here I am introducing all these people on stage. I now rewritten my goals in the present, and I meet a guy named Larry Scott. And Larry Scott was Mr. Universe, Mr. Idaho, Mr. California, Mr. Everything. He and even Arnold Schwarzenegger got his autograph when he was a kid because he inspired him to get into the weight loss programs and the muscle building. And so he has this rock solid torso, and I'm like, Larry, you're 66 years old. You got like rock solid abs. Do you do a lot of sit-ups and push-ups and things? And he says, I do no push-ups, no sit-ups. And in fact, I worked out my abs in the shower this morning. And I said, I don't know if I want to know what you did in the shower this morning, but I'm a bit curious. Would you teach me? And so he started telling me about isometrics, isotonics, how heat burns fat. He started talking about you need to read the backs now of these foods, right? And he says, if you read Slim Fast, it's an oxymoron. It's called Slim Slow. You're starving yourself, and it's packed with carbs. There's a health ratio, 2 proteins for every carb, work out 3 days a week. If you'll just do that much, I promise you're going to see a massive difference. Look at the back of Muscle Milk. They figured it out, 2-to-1 ratio. So I started doing stuff. He gave me a little blender, some little exercise, elastics and stuff. And I went out there, and 4 months later, I come back to my doctor weighing 200 pounds, size 34 waist. That goal in the present happened in 4 months.
Wow.
It's powerful because my mind believed that I resembled that. It's kind of like when you have people write their own obituaries. What do you want to have said at your party?
Right.
At your graduation ceremony.
Right.
And just write it now.
Yeah.
And as you start to believe that, it's just like Earl Nightingale said, you become what you think about most of the time. It's powerful stuff.
So I want to introduce my story of Earl Nightingale.
Yeah.
When I first married Kels, his father was very well off. He'd done really well, successful young man. I would love for you to be introduced to him on the other world.
Sure.
I really wanted to learn from him. What's the secret, right? Of being successful, of being an influence in the world that makes a difference. And he pulled out this copy that he'd given to all of his family members, and it was The Strangest Secret in the World.
Oh, wow.
I still have it. It's kind of yellowed.
Yeah.
I wanted to share it. But in doing that, I started changing my intentions. And I started writing things down. And actually, I believe that the way that I received my favorite man in the whole universe into my life was because I had written down those qualities that I was desiring to attract, but also become, right? Because we attract what we become.
Yeah.
And I would set aside space in my car for my future husband. I would set aside space in my closet for my future husband.
Nice.
I even bought a large bed for me and my future husband.
Nice.
And when I would go places and I'd hear a song that usually when you're single, you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
I would turn it around and pretend that I was dedicating it to my future husband. And I would reach out and pretend to hold his hand.
Yeah.
Guess what I have? My future husband.
Yeah.
And that only took me a year and a half of dating men and saying, well, this is good. I appreciate what you've shared with me. And I send you on your way.
Yeah.
I wish you luck in life. But in doing that, I'm an actress a little bit. I play on set. And I had the opportunity to work with the man who is a collector of things. And I had decided that one of my goals was I wanted to get an autographed book of Earl Nightingale because I'd listened to his audios over and over and over, and I knew his 13 steps and everything like that.
Yep.
And it made a huge difference in my life. It really enriched my life. And this was a goal of mine. Well, in working on this commercial set, this man said that he actually had an autographed copy of Earl Nightingale.
Nice.
And so Kels and I ran down, purchased it right away. And that was a Father's Day gift that I was able to give to my father-in-law.
How cool.
And this is the book.
Yeah.
This is Earl Nightingale. This is Earl Nightingale. And inside, for those of you who are watching, you can see the autograph of Earl Nightingale right there in the book. Best wishes, Earl Nightingale.
Nice.
And
that's priceless.
That was my experience of realizing the power that I have. And that I can make things happen.
You became who you thought about, right?
Yes.
From organizing the closet, buying the bed, you were planning and inviting into your life what you wanted. And isn't that interesting? They call it putting it out in the universe. Rhonda Byrne calls it a genie. I call it God.
Right.
Right. But the thing is,
higher power.
Higher power, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is that there's some power out there. The law of attraction has been a secret for years. And I told on my Facebook Live the other day to a bunch of my fans that tune in every day. I do it every day I go to work. I do a little Facebook Live. It's become almost like its own podcast. My drive into work. But we started talking about David and Goliath. And I started talking about how as David ran towards the Philistine, he pronounced victory over what he was about to do. He spoke it into existence, right? Before that stone, struck the Philistine in the head and killed him, he was pronouncing victory over that action. Are we doing the same in our lives? Are we putting it out there saying, I am this, I have this, I do this? When God asked him, what his name was, what did he say? I am that I am. Do we say, I am a child of God? I am a successful business person. I am a fantastic spouse and father or mother. Are we pronouncing the victory over our lives? Because words are powerful, because that same book I was talking about earlier, it says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he says, let there be light, and there was light. He spoke it. And, and he's God, but we are his offspring. We are his children, and we have the opportunity to channel his power if we so desire to use it righteously. So I invite you to invite God into your life. What does the word enthusiasm mean? God within. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And nothing in life was ever accomplished without great enthusiasm. So I hope you have enthusiasm and excitement and vision for your life, because that same book says when there's no vision, people perish.
That is so profound. I want you to take us back a little bit. There's been a space of training your mind to believe the things that you said. But when we're starting new with affirmations, share with me the steps that you took, the baby steps that you took in allowing yourself to embrace the I am. Because a lot of the times, naturally, we go to the trash that's in our head, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I did a lot of musical theater. Right after I got off my mission in Santiago, Chile, I stepped right into the auditions of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor the Dreamcoat, because they were in town. As soon as I got off the plane, they were already in town to audition my brother David, who was understudying my Uncle Donny and Joseph.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so my first night being back from the mission after being gone for 2 years, I wasn't showing pictures of my mission. I was learning lyrics. It was red and yellow and green and brown and sky, and that's what I did my first night home. But the next day I stepped into the auditions and I got it.
Wow.
And so I immediately did it for 2 years, and it was fantastic. Made a lot of money, traveled the world, had a lot of success. Then I came home to go to school, and they had cast me in the lead role of Charlie Brown, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown,
Yes.
as Charlie. So I was super pumped. Not only now I get to step into the lead role in this next musical, I'm excited. I was determined to be the best Charlie Brown out there. So I started taking acting lessons. I bought the yellow shirt with the black zigzag. I had a cardboard cutout. I bought it at a Hallmark store down here at the mall. And I looked at Charlie Brown every day. I put paper bags over my head. I said, good grief, everywhere I went, right? I mean, I was trying to channel Charlie everywhere I went. But there's this one particular scene I was working on in my acting classes, and it's called The Doctor Is In. It's when Lucy comes out and says to Charlie Brown, Charlie Brown, you need to come out and talk about everything that's wrong with you. Mm-hmm. It's like she's his therapist.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So the doctor's in, and so he does. He comes out and says, I'm not very handsome or clever or lucid. I've always been stupid at spelling and numbers. I've never been much playing football or baseball or stickball or checkers or marbles or ping pong. I've always been stupid parties and dances. I stand like a stick, or I cough, or I laugh, or I don't bring a present, or I spill the ice cream, or I get so depressed that I stand on ice cream. Oh, how could there possibly be one small person as thoroughly, totally, utterly blah as me? And those directors were spot on, because I had literally become that kid.
Oh.
At that time in my life, I was failing math big time. I was walking around with a cloud, and not like the other kid that's dirty, but because I had this heaviness on my chest, and I was literally walking around with slumped shoulders like Charlie Brown and saying good grief, and not feeling the Nathan Osmond you see before you right now. And I had no reason to feel down. I mean, I just bought me a new sports car. I was dating the girl of my dreams who later became my wife. I had money in the bank. I was going to school. I just got cast in the lead role. Why am I depressed? Didn't make any sense. So I said, I have got to figure me out. And so I went up to the Provo Temple up here where my parents got married one night in my little sports car. And as I'm sitting there just pondering and praying and feeling down, I just was praying to help understand why I'm feeling this way. And then I hear something, a voice coming from the passenger side of my car. No one was sitting there, at least I couldn't see him. But I heard something clear as day that said, why don't you love yourself the way that I love you? I looked, and I knew who had said it. But number two, I realized what I had become. I had become Charlie Brown. I had become that little kid in the yellow shirt. I was beating the crud out of myself day after day, just down in the dumps, and now it was making sense. And with tears streaming down my face, I realized if he could love me, why couldn't I love myself? What's the greatest commandment? To love him. But the second is like unto it, to love thy neighbor as who?
As thyself.
And if we said half the stuff we say to ourselves internally to others, we could be locked up for abuse. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just awful what we say to ourselves sometimes.
It is so
No wonder
true.
I was failing math. I mean, I've always been stupid at spelling and numbers. Duh. So I went and I got me a milkshake that night. And I did something nice for me. I stopped taking myself so seriously. My Uncle Donny and I have become really close because during COVID, I experienced something really crazy. And I'd never been through anything like this before. Mr. Upbeat, even past Charlie Brown moments now, I just started feeling like I was going to pass out. And I didn't know why, what's causing this. And I pulled over, it mostly happened when I was driving. And it was scaring me. And I'm like, this is all during COVID and stuff. And after the job loss and everything else. And, trying to get back on my feet again. But this 1 week, I just kept feeling these episodes where I felt like I was going to, pass out. And I've never passed out. So finally, I called my mother because I was filming something for this company, and I said, would you come over to this little Mexican restaurant I'm at right now? I'm filming this little thing. If I pass out, I want someone here. My wife's working right now. So my mother came over, insisted that I go to the doctor. So finally I went to see the doctor. They checked my blood levels, my sugar levels, my everything, blood pressure, and everything checked out fine. And they said, we can't prove this, but we think that your serotonin levels might be low. And most of those are created in the gut. That's your happy hormone. And so I'm like, strange, so they prescribed me this stuff. I still didn't take it. Finally, that weekend, I go to my brother's house. My little nephew was having a birthday, and I start having one of these episodes again. And my mother can tell. And she says, "Did you go get that medication?" I said, "No." She's like, "You go get it right now. I'll take your kids home. Just go get it." So I start walking to my car, kind of having this weird, overwhelming feeling. Am I going to pass out? What's going on here? I'm praying to Heavenly Father. And I said to him, "Please, I don't know if I'm supposed to be driving right now. Would you please protect me and help me to get to my destination safely?" And so, here I am. I backed out and I was praying to him and I asked for that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I come to the stop sign. Then I go to push the gas again and my car won't move. It's frozen there. And now I'm really starting to panic, right? And I put it in reverse. It won't even back up. Here I'd just been driving. And after I said amen, it's froze. It's like God froze me there to protect me. I was like, my prayers are being answered immediately. Something's going on. My car, now I'm going to go pay for this, and all these things. And I finally kicked into what's called limp mode, and it only drive about 20 miles an hour. Huh. So I was being protected even on the way there. I called my wife in tears. She's like, "Don't turn it off. Drive it to the shop. I'll go get your medicine. I'll meet you there, blah, blah, blah." So she did. And now I'm just feeling like overwhelmed by what is going on within me. We got a world pandemic going on. I'm working a part-time job. My car is shutting off on me, and prayers are being answered immediately. I called my Uncle Donny. And I told him what I was going through. And he started laughing. And he said, "Welcome to the club, bud." And I was like, "You're having panic attacks." Oh. And he'd written a whole book on this, called Life is Just What You Make It. And so he says, and I'm like, "There's no way. I'm Mr. Positive and Mr. Achieving Awesomeness Now podcaster guy. Panic attacks?" Right? And he says, "Do you want to come over to my house and just talk about it?" I said, "I'd love that." So I swallowed my pride, went over there, and for 2 hours he just talked to me about things I could work on and things that helped him and the therapist that he had hired. Man, he went through a lot with Joseph. Here he'd been Mr. Donny Osmond his whole life, but he started having these panic attacks, especially during the role of Joseph.
Wow.
And he even told me, that one night he wasn't going to go on, and he was just in his dressing room, and he was triggered. And his wife said to him something really powerful that night. "Donny, your whole life you've been expected to be perfect. You're the lead singer of a five-brother band. You've been the face of. You're Mr. Heartthrob, puppy love guy. And a mediocre show to you is an incredible show to these people.
Right.
Do me a favor tonight. Go out and do a mediocre job." Like, it was the strangest advice he'd ever been given by anybody. That's just not what Osmonds do. We're 110%. So she gave him permission to kind of go walk through it and just do an okay halfway job, and laugh a little while you're out there. He said, "I went out and I did the best show of my life that night." And because sometimes we just put ourselves so much pressure on ourselves that's unnecessary. He even told me that when they did their first rehearsals, he went out there, and the guy that was producing Joseph, he brought Donny to the front of the stage, and he said, "Donny, what is your job?" And he said, "To do the best, performance ever, every single night, and just give 110%. And he started laughing at him. He says, "Donny Osmond, you are wrong." He said, "What do you mean I'm wrong? I've been doing this really well my whole life." And he says, "Donny, you got it all wrong. Your job is to come out here on this stage and have the time of your life. These people that are paying top dollar, that are sitting in a dark theater, why they do that? Is because they got a lot of crap going on in their lives. And there's a lot of hard stuff happening in each one of their lives. And they're paying top dollar to come in here, to sit in a dark theater, to get a glimpse into that euphoria that you're experiencing up here on this platform. You're allowing them to look into your life in that very moment to get a sense of joy and just overwhelming just happiness, because that's what they're lacking in their lives, and they're willing to pay for it to get a small glimpse of it. Your job, Donny Osmond, is to go to have the time of your life.
Wow.
And he says, man, I had it backwards this whole time.
That's so much pressure and so many internal lies. How heavy that is.
Now, what if we took that same advice, all of us, and we looked at the stage of life that we're in right now? And what if we made the decision to live and to have the time of our lives now?
Right.
Even though he's getting beat up by his brothers and thrown in a pit and sold off into Egypt. You know what? We're all having those kind of moments, aren't we? So what? Live your life. Live every day. Choose to be happy. And I don't mean go around, I'm feeling good, and fake it. But when somebody asks you how you're doing, just like my friend Tom Hopkins taught me, he says, say, unbelievable. How's business? Unbelievable. It might suck right now. Unbelievable. Embrace the suck. So what? Life's hard. So what? I worked with a guy who was going blind. He went blind at the age of, I think, about 21. He wasn't always blind, so he knew what it was like to see. But it was hard in that kind of young time of your life to lose your sight.
Yeah.
His buddies took him to the mall and said, find your way home, bud. It was tough love. They were not going to let him be a victim. And so it was hard. He contemplated suicide. He said, Nathan, I had the noose tied around my neck with sheets. I had it tied to my bed. I was ready to jump out of the second-story window. But I heard my mama walking downstairs, and I couldn't put her through that.
No.
So he decided to stick around. And he wrote a book called I'm Blind, So What?
Wow.
You know what? There's so many good books we can read.
So
You're a collector of books. Kyle Maynard's, No Excuses. Here's a guy who's born with no arms and no legs, and he's a high school football and wrestling champion. Because his parents treated him just the same as his other brothers.
Our minds are our limits.
Yeah. We put the limitations on ourselves.
Do you know Chad Hymas?
Oh, yeah. Great guy.
He has an incredible presentation that changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
He was on a farm. He had bales of hay that should have killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And he laid there without any help for hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he is quadriplegic, I believe.
Yep.
That means from his neck down, he has no use except for maybe a little movement in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
But he had some ladies come up on stage and ask them to open a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And now do it without your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough.
And the life lesson there was, how often are we living with a disability?
Oh, my father's disabled.
Yeah.
He's had MS since I was 10. So for 35 years. But from day one, he said, I might have MS, but MS does not have me.
Oh, stop on that.
Mm-hmm. From day one. And that was hard because they didn't know much about MS. And he said, sons, I have what's called MS. And I don't know, I'm not going to die from this thing. I might end up in a wheelchair. But as long as I got yours and your mother's support, we're going to get through this. It'll be just fine. Right? And he went on Larry King's show. And he talked about it. And he said, Larry, it's not the disease or the MS or anything that gets you. It's the lack of hope. He says, have faith without hope first. Why do neighborhoods turn into hoods? Because they lose hope. Oh. You see what I'm saying? And same things happen in our lives. When you lose hope, you can't have faith.
Yeah.
So you got to start with hope. Cling to hope. And so then my brother David gets MS, right in his prime. And he said it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me because I never take another step for granted.
Wow.
It's amazing how people that are in those, arenas that seem to have all the joy like Chad Hymas, how can you say that? How can you say it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you? It wasn't in the beginning.
Nope.
He talked about how his father had to talk some sense into him before he let his wife and kids in to see him. Right?
Yeah.
And I love his story. But we can learn from people like that, and we're all going to go through our own test. But through the test comes the testimony, my father says.
That's right.
And you got to turn your mess into a message. And that's what Chad did, right? And we all got a mess. But what are we going to do with our mess? That's the thing. I might have MS, but it does not have me. Attitude is everything. And I'm inspired by people that.
Are you guys jumping an amen in your home right now? Just amen.
Oh. Well, I was with my father, and I took him to a Chinese restaurant, and it's just the two of us. And as I sat there, I wanted to just kind of pick his brain. And I said to him, Father, if you could go back in time and visit your younger self, what would you say to your younger self, knowing what you now know through what you've gone through and grown through life? Because you don't just go through it, you grow through it. And he stopped, he made a funny, smart aleck remark, and I laughed. But then he got serious, and he said, son, here's what I tell my younger self. It's not who you are, but who you become that ultimately matters. And that was powerful, because all of us are in progression. We're all progressing. None of us are perfect, right? And but it's not who you are right now, which is when it comes to this whole New Year's resolutions and intentions and everything else. But who do you want to become? That's where that obituary comes into place. Because there was a guy that he woke up one day and read the obituary, which should have been his brother's obituary, but the newspaper man messed up. And he wrote as if this guy who was reading the paper died. And so he had the opportunity to read what people thought of him.
He was reading his own
obituary,
but it was for his brother.
But his brother is the one that passed away. But this guy that wrote the article wrote about this man, and this man had created what's called dynamite. He created these explosives and bombs and stuff that are used all over the world, and he called him basically Dr. Death, and just was an awful thing to read. And he says, is this the way the world views me? Huh. Is this my legacy? If this were my last day on earth, is this what I left?
Kind of the Christmas Carol kind of story.
And so he decided, like Scrooge, I'm going to change, right? It changed him. So he decided to take some of that money that he's making on all this explosives and bombs from around the world, and guess what? He decided to open up this fund every year that is now, it gives away $1 million to people that further the cause of peace around the world. The guy's last name was Nobel. And when we think about the Nobel Peace Prize, do we think about Dr. Death?
Is that after him?
After him.
The
Nobel Peace Prize. He created this fund. Wow. And every year he gives away $1 million to people who help to further the cause of peace.
Wow.
So we have the opportunity to change the way people think of us.
To rewrite our
What
story.
people think of us shouldn't matter anyways, but it does matter.
Yeah.
I mean, my friend Andy Andrews said, Nathan, you want to know how to never let what people say about you affect you? I said, yeah. He says, me too. It's so true. But, the thing is, too, is we have resources that are all around us that we can tune into. We just need to stop, get still, look at what we have to work with, and find the tools and the people and the coaches and the therapists and the free podcasts that are out there that can help inspire us and get us through those moments. Because back in the day, it was like 1901, I believe it was, they had the big World's Fair. And there was this heavier set guy that got shot 2 separate times. Boom, boom. And the crowd dispersed, and they ran, and they grabbed this man at the World's Fair, and they hauled him into this tent. And they were able to find the first bullet. But they, for the life of them, could not find the second bullet, and were forced to sew this man up, knowing he would die soon because the gangrene had already started to kick in, and they couldn't get that second bullet out. And 7 days later, this man passed away, and this is how the United States President McKinley, was assassinated. And the thing is, though, further investigation is that in that very tent where they were doing the operations on him at the World's Fair was the world's very first fully functioning X-ray machine, just feet from them.
Right. Oh, wow.
Now, if they would have taken the time to say, stop, look around, what can we... There's this new technology. They could have found the bullet.
Right.
Oftentimes we just need to get still. My grandmother Osmond said that once after having a stroke, that sometimes God compels us to be still. Sometimes my father says, I think God gave me MS so I would be able to smell the roses a little more, enjoy the moments. Because they sold over 100 million records. And they went all over the world, but there's so many times they never got the opportunity to see where they were or go experience the cultures and do the things they wanted to do because they were too busy you know? And so I understand that sometimes you just got to work and push through, but take time to find balance in life. And that's what MS has helped to teach my father, is balance. You know, he loses his balance sometimes because of his MS, but he never takes a step for granted. And he's so grateful he can now be a temple worker. He can run a nonprofit organization helping orphans around the world. You know, he's able to just be a grandpa and a father and make up for some of that time, you know, where he was so busy. So anyway, just these are good lessons. And sometimes lessons are learned easily and sometimes they're learned the hard way.
It's true.
But regardless, whatever you're going through, don't just go through it. Grow through it. Ask yourself the question, what can I learn from this right now? How is this going to benefit me in the future? How can I avoid this mistake in the future? And build on that.
Yeah.
But don't be a Charlie Brown. Don't beat yourself up. You know, the person that doesn't laugh at themselves leaves the job for the rest of the world to do. So you got to learn to just laugh a little bit.
Nate, this has been so delicious. Thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences and your knowledge. And you could have written my whole podcast. It's right here. You did fantastic. Nathan, seriously, thank you for sharing your heart.
Thank you, Stephanie. This has been fun. I am so grateful for your listeners that are taking time to further their knowledge and training and education. And I hope you'll share this podcast. If you were touched by anything that was said, you know, if you learned something, don't keep it to yourself. Pass it on.
And Nate, how can my friends get in touch with you and see the work that you have done?
Well, they can go to nathanosmond.com. That's my website. And I've got my podcast on there they can listen to. I've got music. I've got the movie. We got all sorts of things going on there. And just updates. Obviously, I'm on all the social media sites, from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn to Twitter, you name it. We're on all of those. And just, make sure you join us every morning, too, on Facebook, the official Nathan Osmond fan page. I do a drive to work every single day, so if you want to visit with me live, that's a great way. Or just go to osmondhomeloans.com, and you can contact me there, too. So
there you go. You have no excuses not reaching out to Nathan Osmond. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe, share, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Please comment, because I would love to hear about what you think and what you want to see in the future. I'm no therapist, but I am your host, Stephanie Goodman.